I should have listened to my gut and stayed home that night. But my sister Emma had been going through a messy divorce, and when she called crying at 10 p.m., asking if I could drive over with ice cream and wine, I couldn't say no. She lived about an hour away in a small town outside Portland, and I'd made the drive dozens of times before. The rain was coming down hard as I pulled out of my driveway. October in Oregon means the roads get slick early and visibility drops to almost nothing. I took it slow, keeping my headlights on high beam and my phone plugged in for GPS, even though I knew the route by heart. About 40 minutes in, my car started making a noise. A grinding sound from under the hood that got worse every time I accelerated. I'm not mechanically inclined, but I knew it wasn't good. The temperature gauge was creeping toward the red zone. I managed to coast to a pull-out area near some woods, about 5 miles from the nearest town. The engine died with a wheeze and refused to start again. Steam was rising from under the hood, and I could smell something burning. My phone had 1 bar of signal. I tried calling AAA, but the call kept dropping. I tried Emma, but it went straight to voicemail. The rain was hammering the roof of my car, and I could barely see 10 feet in any direction. After 20 minutes of failed phone calls, I saw headlights approaching from behind. A pickup truck slowed down and pulled over. The driver got out and walked to my window, hunched against the rain. He looked normal enough, maybe 50, wearing a baseball cap and a rain jacket. When I rolled down my window a crack, he had to shout over the storm. "Car trouble?" he asked. I nodded. "Engine overheated, I think. Can't get a signal to call for help." "Yeah, cell service is spotty out here. I've got a landline at my place, about 2 miles up the road. You can call from there if you want." The offer seemed genuine, and I was getting desperate. The rain wasn't letting up, and I was already running late to meet Emma. But something about his eyes bothered me. They were too intense, too focused on my face. "That's okay," I said. "I'll wait for someone else to come by." He stood there for a moment, rain dripping from his hat. Not many people use this road at night. You could be waiting a long time. "I'll be fine. Thanks though." He shrugged and walked back to his truck. But instead of driving away, he pulled forward about 50 yards and parked. I could see his taillights in the darkness, just sitting there. The minutes stretched by. 10, 15, 20. His truck didn't move. I started to feel genuinely afraid. Why was he waiting? What was he doing? I locked my doors and tried my phone again. Still no signal. The rain was getting heavier, and fog was starting to roll in from the woods. I couldn't see his truck anymore, just the faint glow of his taillights. Then the taillights went out. My heart started pounding. I strained to see through the windshield, but the rain and fog made it impossible. Had he left? Was he coming back? A tap on my passenger window made me jump. The man was standing there, barely visible in the darkness. He gestured for me to roll down the window. "Changed my mind," he called out. "I'll give you a ride to town. You can call for a tow from there." "No, I'm fine." "Really? Come on, you can't sit out here all night. It's not safe." The way he said "not safe" made my skin crawl. There was something predatory in his tone now, something that hadn't been there before. I said I'm fine. He tried the door handle. It was locked, but he kept pulling on it, harder and harder. The whole car was rocking. "Just trying to help," he said, but his voice was different now. Angry. I fumbled for my phone, thinking maybe I could call 911 even without a signal. Sometimes emergency calls go through. But as I looked down at the screen, I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. The soft scrape of metal on glass. He was dragging something sharp along my passenger window. When I looked up, he was holding a crowbar. His face was pressed against the glass, and he was smiling. "You should have taken the ride," he said. The crowbar came down hard on the window. Spider web cracks spread across the glass, but it held. I screamed and threw the car into reverse, even though the engine was dead. Nothing happened. He raised the crowbar again. This time, the window shattered. Glass showered the interior as his arm reached through, trying to unlock the door. I grabbed the first thing I could find, a heavy flashlight from my glove compartment, and brought it down on his wrist as hard as I could. He howled and jerked his arm back, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he moved to the driver's side window and started prying at the door frame with the crowbar. The metal was bending. The door was going to give way. In desperation, I tried the ignition one more time. The engine coughed, sputtered, and somehow caught. I threw it into drive and floored it, leaving him standing in the rain behind me. The car lurched forward, steam pouring from the hood. The temperature gauge was buried in the red, and I could hear the engine knocking, but I kept driving. 2 miles. 3. 4. Finally, I saw lights ahead. A 24-hour gas station, with a police cruiser parked out front. I pulled in and stumbled out of my car, shaking and covered in glass. The officer took my statement and called for backup. They found my car's window glass scattered across the pullout and tire tracks showing where the man's truck had been parked. But they never found him. The mechanic who looked at my car said something that changed everything. The problem wasn't natural wear and tear. Someone had poured sand into my oil reservoir, probably while I was at work earlier that day. It was designed to cause an overheating failure after about 40 minutes of driving. That's when I started noticing things. How my usual parking spot at work had been empty for weeks. Then suddenly other cars started parking there right after I got this new schedule. How I'd been getting hang-up calls on my landline. How my neighbor mentioned seeing someone walking around my building at odd hours. Emma moved in with me for a while after that night. She said it was because of her divorce, but I knew better. We both jumped at every sound, checked locks twice, kept the curtains drawn. The police never called back. No arrests were made. Life went on, but differently. Sometimes I catch myself checking my rearview mirror more than I should. Sometimes I change my route home for no reason. And sometimes, when I'm filling up my gas tank, I notice a pickup truck parked across the street, engine running, windows tinted too dark to see inside. It's probably nothing. It's probably just my imagination. But I don't park in that same spot at work anymore. I never drive Route 33 anymore. Not at night, anyway. This happened 3 years ago, but I still take the long way around whenever I'm heading back from my parents' place in rural Ohio. It adds 40 minutes to my drive, but I don't care. Some roads aren't worth the shortcut. I was 24 then, working as a graphic designer in Columbus. My mom had called that Friday afternoon, worried sick about my dad who'd been having chest pains. By the time I got off work and drove the 2 hours to their house, the doctor had already seen him and said it was just acid reflux. False alarm, but you know how it is. Family emergencies make you drop everything. I stayed for dinner, helped Dad move some furniture he'd been stubbornly trying to handle alone, and by the time I left, it was already past 11. The plan was to drive straight home, shower, and get some decent sleep before my Saturday morning client meeting. Route 33 was empty at that hour, just me and the occasional semi-truck rolling through the darkness. About an hour into the drive, I noticed the headlights behind me. Nothing unusual about that, it's a main highway. But as the miles passed, they stayed exactly the same distance back. Not gaining, not falling behind. Just there, matching my speed perfectly. I tested it by slowing down to 60, then speeding up to 75. The lights stayed put, like they were tethered to my bumper. I told myself it was coincidence. People drive the same routes at the same speeds. But my hands started sweating on the steering wheel. There's something deeply unsettling about being followed, even when you're not sure that's what's happening. The highway stretched ahead, empty and dark except for my headlights cutting through the night. Woods pressed close on both sides, and the mile markers counted down like a clock. 131, 130, 129. The lights behind me never wavered. At mile marker 127, I saw the rest stop sign and made a snap decision. I'd pull over, use the bathroom, maybe grab a coffee from the vending machine. Let whoever was behind me pass, and then I'd know for sure if I was being paranoid. The rest stop was one of those bare-bones places, a couple of picnic tables, a bathroom building, and a parking lot with a few semi-trucks sleeping under the fluorescent lights. I pulled into a spot near the building and sat there for a moment, watching my mirrors. The other car drove past without slowing. I caught a glimpse of it in my headlights, a dark sedan. Couldn't make out the model or license plate. Relief flooded through me. Just paranoia after all. I walked to the bathroom, did my business, and bought a Coke from the machine. The carbonation felt good on my throat. I'd been holding my breath without realizing it. But when I got back to my car, something was wrong. The passenger side door was ajar. Just a crack, but I knew I'd locked it. I always lock my car, even in safe places. It's automatic. I stood there staring at the door, my heart starting to pound. Maybe I'd been distracted, forgot to check it properly. Maybe the lock was faulty. I pulled out my phone to use the flashlight, and that's when I saw the footprints in the dirt beside my car. Fresh ones that hadn't been there before. Someone had been here. Someone had tried to get in my car while I was in the bathroom. I spun around, scanning the parking lot. The semi-truck sat silent and dark. No movement anywhere. But I felt eyes on me, that crawling sensation between my shoulder blades. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately, my hands shaking as I started the engine. As I pulled out of the rest stop, I checked my mirrors obsessively. No headlights followed me. For the next 20 miles, I started to relax. Maybe it had been a vagrant checking cars for unlocked doors, looking for loose change or something to steal. It happens. I'd been lucky to catch it early. Then I smelled it. Cigarette smoke. Stale and acrid, like someone had been smoking in my car recently. But I don't smoke. Never have. The smell was coming from behind me. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a shape in my back seat. A man, sitting quietly in the darkness, watching me drive. My blood turned to ice. He'd been in my car the whole time. While I was in the bathroom, he'd gotten in through the passenger door and hidden in the back. Waiting. "Don't stop," he said quietly. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Don't slow down. Don't look back here again." I could barely breathe. My hands were locked on the steering wheel, knuckles white. The speedometer read 75. Mile marker 106 flashed by. "Take the next exit," he said. "County Road 15. Nice and easy." I knew that exit. It led to farmland and empty fields, places where no one would hear anything. My mind raced through options. I could crash the car, but we were going too fast. I could try to flag down a truck, but there were none around. I said take the exit. His voice was harder now. I saw him lean forward slightly in the mirror, and something metallic glinted in his hand. The exit sign appeared, County Road 15, 1 mile. My whole body was shaking. I put on my turn signal like he'd asked, but as we approached the off-ramp, I made my choice. Instead of turning, I yanked the wheel hard left and floored the accelerator. The car shot across the median and into oncoming traffic. Horns blared, headlights blazed, but I kept going, weaving between cars and trucks, doing 90 in a 65 zone. Behind me, I heard him swearing, felt him lunging forward. Something sharp scraped against my neck, a knife, I think, but I jerked away and the car swerved wildly. Up ahead, I saw the blessed sight of a state trooper parked on the shoulder, running radar. I aimed straight for him, laying on the horn and flashing my lights. The trooper saw me coming and stepped out of his car, hand on his weapon. I slammed on the brakes and skidded to a stop inches from his bumper. "Help me!" I screamed through the windshield. "There's someone in my car." But when the trooper opened my back door, gun drawn, there was nobody there. Just an empty back seat and the lingering smell of cigarettes. The trooper searched my car thoroughly. He found scratches on the passenger door lock, like someone had picked it. He found a cigarette, but under the back seat, still warm. And on the floor, he found a hunting knife with a piece of my jacket stuck to the blade. They never caught him. The trooper said he'd probably bailed out when I was weaving through traffic, rolled into the median, and disappeared into the woods. They found footprints leading away from the highway, but the trail went cold after a few hundred yards. What haunts me most is what the trooper told me later. 3 other women had reported similar incidents on Route 33 over the past year. All of them driving alone at night. All of them stopping at that same rest stop. 2 of them never made it home. I think about that sometimes, about how close I came to being the third one who didn't make it. And I wonder if he's still out there, waiting at mile marker 127, watching for the next woman traveling alone. That summer, I was driving solo from Northern California down Highway 1, aiming to visit my aunt in San Diego. I just graduated college and had plenty of time and freedom, so I decided not to rush, instead enjoying the scenery along the way. Before I left, my aunt strongly advised me against driving after dark, especially on certain stretches of Highway 1. She kept emphasizing that cell service was spotty out there, and many areas were sparsely populated. I didn't think much of it at the time, figuring I was an adult and what could possibly happen. I stopped in a small town near Monterey for lunch and a walk on the beach, which ate up more time than I intended. By the time I got back on the road, the sun was already dipping below the horizon, the sky shifting from a bright orange to a deep purple. I turned on my headlights and continued along the winding coastline. The trees by the road grew thicker and thicker, forming dark silhouettes, occasionally revealing glimpses of the bottomless ocean. The highway became narrower, and a few times I felt like my tires were almost touching the edge. I started to regret not listening to my aunt. Around 9 p.m., I entered a stretch of road with no streetlights at all. Tall redwoods lined both sides, their canopies interlacing overhead, blocking out what little moonlight there was. The only light in the car came from the faint glow of the navigation system and the hum of the engine. A chill ran down my spine, even though it was summer. That's when I noticed a beam of light in my rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was just another car and felt a sense of relief that someone else was out there, which would make me feel a bit safer. But this light was strange. It didn't get closer, just maintained a constant distance, following me. I'd occasionally tap my brakes to see if it would slow down too, but it just stayed there, neither too far nor too close. I sped up, and the light sped up with me. That's when I started to feel uneasy. This wasn't typical driver behavior. There were no turnoffs on this road, just one winding highway. This meant that car was deliberately following me. My heart started pounding, and my palms grew sweaty. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my eyes fixed on the road ahead and the rearview mirror. I turned on the radio, hoping for some sound to distract me, but all I got was static. I tried calling my aunt, but my phone screen just showed no service. The car kept going, and I felt a fear I'd never experienced before. That beam of light felt like a pair of eyes, staring at me in the dark. Ahead, I saw what looked like a small, abandoned gas station. Its sign was dilapidated, and vines climbed all over the gas pumps. I hesitated for a moment, but then decided to gun it. I floored the accelerator, hoping to lose whatever was behind me. Just as I passed the gas station, the light in my rearview mirror suddenly vanished. I slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. I looked back, but there was nothing there, just pitch blackness. I pulled my car into the empty lot of the gas station, my heart pounding in my ears. I didn't dare get out of the car, just sat in the driver's seat, breathing heavily. I tried to calm myself down, telling myself it was probably just my imagination, or that the car had turned off onto a side road I hadn't seen. But that explanation felt so hollow. Just as I was trying to convince myself, I heard a sound. The sound came from my car roof. It was very faint, like a light scratching on metal. My body instantly froze. I jerked my head up, looking through the sunroof glass. I couldn't see anything in the dark night sky, but the sound continued, and it grew faster and louder. I felt a shiver run from my spine straight to the top of my head. My instinct told me something was on my car roof. My mind went blank, leaving only fear. I violently started the car, slammed the accelerator, and the tires spun, screeching as I shot forward. I didn't look at the road at all, just drove on instinct. The wind howled in my ears, and I could feel the car shaking, as if whatever was on the roof was still struggling. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, the veins on the back of my hands bulging. I don't know how long I drove, but finally, lights appeared ahead. It was a small town. I almost cried as I sped into town, pulling my car over in front of a brightly lit convenience store. I jumped out of the car, my body still shaking violently. I stumbled to the convenience store's glass door and looked through it at my car roof. Nothing. The roof was clean, except for some marks left by rain. There was nothing there. I collapsed to the ground. The convenience store clerk heard the commotion and came out. Seeing how shaken I was, she asked me anxiously what was wrong. I incoherently told her about my recent encounter, and as she listened, her expression grew serious. She told me to come inside and rest for a bit, then walked over to my car and examined it carefully. The paint's scratched here. She pointed to a spot on the roof near the driver's seat. Looks like someone used a fingernail or something hard and scratched it very hard. I looked at the scraped paint and my stomach churned. The clerk told me that strange things occasionally happened in this area, and she advised me not to drive alone at night anymore. She also mentioned that some tourists had reported similar incidents at night, feeling like a car was following them, only for it to disappear when they looked back. I called the police, but when they arrived, they just took a report, saying they would look into it. They couldn't find anything, no surveillance, no witnesses, and that ghost car seemed to have vanished into thin air. It was only later, when I thought back, that I realized something even more terrifying. My aunt's house, in the suburbs of San Diego, had a very specific mark on her mailbox. It was a small, abstract design my aunt had drawn years ago. I only later found out that the scratched paint on my car roof, the mark it left, was eerily similar to that design. I've never driven alone at night since, especially in isolated areas. I don't know who was following me that night, or what they wanted to do. But I know that someone knew my aunt's address, and that perhaps they knew me much earlier than I realized. That summer, I completely lost that feeling of freedom I used to have when driving at night. It was replaced by an enduring chill and a never-ending fear of the unknown, of the malice hidden in the dark.